So this is Dominic. Good evening, my name's Nick, I'm from Metal Temple, and I'm here with...
I'm Guthrie Govan.
Excellent, nice to meet you, man. So, how's this tour been going?
It's been good.
Yeah.
It's been grueling. We've been playing a lot and not resting very much, but this is the life we chose, so
exactly.
I'm not going to complain about that.
How long have you been on the road for this one?
I don't even remember. It's more than a month.
More than a month, fair enough.
We have a little Christmas break coming up, which I will spend touring in Japan with a different band, and then we meet up again in Finland, go halfway through January, and then go for another month and a bit.
Okay, who's it you touring with in Japan?
It's like a custom-made band.
Okay.
There's various kind of Japanese luminaries being put together to play, I guess, a bunch of my solo material. Perhaps most notably this 18-year-old girl called Senri Kawaguchi.
Mm-hmm.
She looks about 12. She looks very innocuous and harmless, and then you put her behind a kit and strange things happen. She's really good.
Fantastic. Have you got any plans to play any of the solo things out here?
Not really. I think I'd probably be best advised to put another solo album together and then focus on touring that stuff.
Right. I think it's great that everyone, whenever they're saying that somebody looks really young, it's always 12. 12 is always the age that everybody goes for.
Yeah.
So, it'll be, I've got a beard. If you shaved, you would immediately go, I look 12.
Well, if you look her up online, you will agree with
Fair
my guesswork.
So have you been anywhere new or particularly exciting or interesting on this current tour that you're...
We played in Bucharest.
Okay, how was that?
Interesting. Unfortunately, something horrible happened in Bucharest not long before we went there, and there was a kind of fire in one of the venues, and understandably the authorities there are very keen for that not to happen again. So a lot of clubs have been closed down, and they're being modified at the moment to make them more idiot-proof. So if anything kicks off in the future, there are better escape routes for everyone. So we were in something resembling an aircraft hangar.
Okay.
It sounded challenging.
Yeah, can't imagine the acoustics being very good in that.
No.
Oh.
But the crowd was good.
Yeah.
That's what keeps us sane.
Yeah,
People
exactly.
keep coming to the shows and it looks like they're enjoying it and they're responding well, and it's been a good tour for that wherever we've gone.
It seems to be it definitely seems to be a growing kind of interest in these kinds of sort of more interesting and slightly more left field styles of music as opposed to straight up rock.
Yeah, it's encouraging to see. I guess part of it is the existence of the internet. It's possible to do something kind of weird and reach the few people who care all over the world.
Boost it that way.
Yeah.
Excellent. So there are lots and lots of different styles evident in all of your solo albums, in Tres Caballeros and the other Aristocrats things. I mean, where is it that you sort of pull all these ideas from to do the different kinds of songs, different styles?
I guess I could answer that in two ways. On a personal level, I've never cared that much for the idea of pigeonholing music and saying this belongs in this genre or that category. To me, music is a language, and all these different styles, they're all just regional dialects, and they're all connected somehow. I like the idea of the family tree of music, you can take something like Meshuggah and go trace it back somehow to Robert Johnson. All these freaky connections. So I try to look at music just as the big picture, and all the time I was growing up and learning how to operate the guitar, I was just fascinated by everything I heard, rather than just having the focus or willpower to say, you know what, bebop is the one true music.
No, bebop is the one true music. I'm going with that. I'm going with that one. I'm a saxophone player, so
okay.
It's all that stuff. I'm sort of.
But I guess the other way I could answer that question is just because we all have fun playing, and it's nice to convey some of the silliness that's actually going on between the musicians in the band. Yeah. And if you're able to reference kind of quirky genres that people wouldn't expect, that has a certain entertainment value.
Yeah, exactly.
So for this current album, it seemed like we're all cowboys, a bit more than on the previous one. And we don't know how it happened, it just did.
Fair enough. Yeah, I was listening to it a lot previous to this, and it was definitely I can't remember what it was. Smuggler's Corridor. I was walking down the street listening to it. It was like, I'm either in a spaghetti western or a Quentin Tarantino film. I'm not entirely sure which.
Well, interestingly enough, that's Brian's song, and his inspiration was a scene in Breaking Bad.
Okay. So
where Walter's rolling a big barrel of money through the desert, and I think the song was conceived as an alternate soundtrack to that.
Awesome. So it's almost like
you definitely hear the desert.
Yeah, so it's almost images, kind of, you're translating sort of an image that you'll have and saying, I'm going to write this song, sort of almost doing it like a hypothetical soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So, I mean, do you have to, when you're sort of, you're referencing all these different genres, do you have to sort of sit down and sort of have to think about what, if there's different genres, like, okay, if I'm playing like this, I ought to go across and listen to some country players and pick up some licks and ideas from them, or?
I think these things always work best when they're not contrived, if you're just going to follow your instincts. If one of us wakes up one morning and says, you know what, I feel like writing a country western tune or a western swing tune or something like that. It starts with the urge to write something, and I think it's best not to question why you're suddenly being called by this little cross-section of music. You just do what feels right.
Sit down, pick up your instrument, and oops, that's what's come out today.
Yeah. So it's an organic process, I guess.
Something coming out of the subconscious as opposed to anywhere that you can pin it down from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you find there's lots of improvisation? So that all that you do all that on stage as well. So different.
That's what keeps us sane and happy on the road. I think if our set was just this very long, complex set of instructions, it's like play all of these notes in this order, and you either get the set right or you make mistakes, that would get tedious.
Yeah.
Because you get to a point where you can kind of play the set on autopilot, and then you stop paying attention.
Yeah.
And you're not kind of committed to the music. So we like the idea that we start with real songs, and there's definitely a framework there and some structure and some attempt to write actual music. But then there are lots of places where we just don't give each other the license to go exploring and surprise each other.
Of course.
So every show is different.
Yeah, I mean that's a great thing. I mean, but it's quite rare these days that you see groups who are even willing to do that. I mean, all the things I listen to, you go to lots of the rock shows, and it'll almost be the best part of note for note from the album. But then, then I've been and sat and gone to sort of 3-hour Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter shows, and there isn't even the basis of a song structure. Do you find that sort of improvisation's almost slightly, I don't know, it's becoming a lost art, or it's sort of slightly more rare to people to be doing things like that?
I'm not sure. Maybe in the world of rock and metal, it's not encouraged that much. I mean, the blues guys and the jazz guys of the world have always thrived on improvisation. I mean, a lot of this is context specific. I think if you go and see a band and they're playing Hotel California or Bohemian Rhapsody, they better play the solo like it is on the record, because it's part of the composition, and people have heard that record so many times that they would rightly feel indignant if some guitar player were to say, I think what Joe Walsh meant to play here was this. So there's a time for recreating the music the way people know it and love it. I have some experience with this from having played with Asia. And there were some solos from like the original early Asia, that catalogue, which I didn't necessarily like that much, but as a mark of respect to the band having achieved what they'd achieved at the time, and also a mark of respect to the audience who have certain expectations. You don't try and modify it, because it's such a well-known thing and it's part of the song. But I think when people come to see our band, hopefully there's this kind of unwritten understanding that we're going to take risks and explore and be a bit naughty. Hopefully people would be disappointed if they came to see one of these shows and every note was just the same as the album. Oh, definitely. I definitely would. That would be what would bring me back up here afterwards. And the thing that we've always found is we write the songs for the album, then we go into the studio, crystallise some kind of recorded version of the song, but then we go out on the road and play it another 40 times, and the true nature of the song will start to reveal itself, and we'll discover, hang on, that section should be longer, or the tempo should be 5 BPM quicker, or like extra little bits will sometimes kind of creep in and become part of the structure of the song. Something that was just an accident that happened on stage one night that turned out to be a good accident. So it's like, let's keep that. We'll do that. We'll do that bit again. Yeah. It's like gardening. You watch the song grow. Yeah, exactly. That's really pretentious. That's fine. That's fine. Have you ever sort of come off the road and gone, can we just go and re-record that one with all the extra bits? Have you ever been tempted to, or actually done that? Or? Well, I think our get out clause there is you can always make a live album. Okay. So generally we'll make a studio album and then tour like maniacs, and then kind of try and film the results, and like to capture some of what's actually going on stage once the songs have had a little time to breathe and define themselves. And it's kind of fun to hear the differences.
Yeah, that sort of thing. I mean, okay, so you guys are all kind of in demand from other groups as players, you know, playing with Asia and Stephen Wilson and Satriani and this, that and the other. I mean, how did you guys come together as a group as the Aristocrats?
A happy accident.
Mm-hmm.
Brian and Marco were supposed to do a trio gig at the NAMM show, you know, the big trade show they have in Anaheim every January. And the guitar player was originally supposed to be Greg Howe. And then Greg had calendar issues at the last minute and suddenly realised he couldn't do the show. So the other two were kind of panicking, like, we need to find a guitar player from somewhere, and they just reached out to people, so what should we do?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Facebook messages came back to Brian that he should call this hairy English guy who would traditionally be at NAMM. So I kind of signed up for that because I was aware of the playing from both of those guys.
Yeah.
Well, this sounds like fun.
Okay.
So we just did a 30-minute slot
Mm-hmm.
with like 2 songs from each of the 3 players, kind of solo catalogues. And then at the end of the gig, we just walked off stage and looked at each other and said, that was really fun, wasn't it? We have to keep doing this.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. I mean, you know, how does the process of writing for things like this, how does it come differently to the other groups that you guys are in?
I think we do write for each other. On the one hand, we don't all sit in a room and try and write a song together. So I think that's time consuming. We all live in different time zones and it just wouldn't be practical.
No.
But we're all capable of making a fully formed demo. So I write 3 songs, Brian writes 3 songs, Marco writes 15 songs. And we just email the MP3s to each other and kind of learn them on the road, and then we'll meet up in the studio.
Okay.
And hope that the chemistry of the band is sufficiently recognisable that you'll hear some continuity throughout the album, even though there are 3 different personalities writing individual pieces of music.
Yeah. And at the same time, so some of, you know, you think of some of the great bands. I mean, the Beatles, it was everyone wrote the different songs. You heard the different personalities on the albums, and it didn't really matter so much.
Yeah.
Did it? It was always you understood that was kind of, you ended up understanding that was where they were coming from, what they were trying to do.
But you can normally spot the twee, jokey Ringo track.
Yes. Yeah.
Or the amazing George Harrison track, so you get the sense that maybe he didn't get as much, he didn't have as much influence, so he was bottling up these gems. Something, a song like something, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, being held back and then they broke up and he's the best Beatle.
I think he won the first solo album contest.
Yeah, and wasn't it the first #1 as well after they broke up he got, so yeah. I mean, okay, so next question.
Hang on, it was a Metal Temple and we're talking about the Beatles.
Yeah, and, you know, I'm way shorter and, you know, it's an incredibly varied experience.
This is a fine temple indeed.
It is. I'm sort of creating my own sort of breakaway branch of a temple. So, I mean, there are lots of sort of young and sort of incredibly sort of progressive and very technically competent players who are out there, and they all seem to play sort of thousands of notes almost for the sake of playing thousands of notes. And, you know, hear you and you're capable of doing that. There's definitely that ability there, but you always seem to manage to make it. You know, there's taste and there's flavour there. I mean, what sort of ways sort of is it you used to do that?
I guess people have different motivations for like trying to do things that are technically challenging.
Yeah.
I guess a lot of it, let's be frank, is hormone dependent. Generally, we're talking about the male half of the population here, and generally it's a certain hormone-ridden point in their lives where they put in the hours, and there's some kind of swashbuckling warrior mentality, just because that's hormones for you. And that often leads to this slightly Olympic mentality where people are competing with each other and who can shred the most or who can do the most outlandish circus trick. And that's not at all the motivation for me. I started playing really, really young, and I'm kind of grateful for that. So I kind of figured out a way to kind of hold the instrument and interact with the instrument that feels really natural. And then you add the fact that I'm this skinny, coffee-drinking, twitchy kind of character, and the music I hear in my head really just has a lot of notes in it. And I think lots of notes can be funny sometimes. I think it loses some of the appeal if you're trying to do something that's technically impressive and you're kind of grandstanding. Hey, check me out, tremble at my name. I mean, it's one thing to impress people, but it's seldom entertaining.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, what are the plans sort of going forward for 2016 for you? Is what you're doing for this group?
Well, we have more touring to do. I guess we do more touring in Europe, and then Joe Satriani will be taking good care of the other two guys for a while. I go into rehearsals with Hans Zimmer, which is the complete polar opposite of this group. This is 3 people, and with all that space, you can do whatever you want and surprise each other. The Hans show, I did a couple last year at Hammersmith, 77 people on stage.
Nice.
If everyone starts taking risks, chaos will ensue. So that's a more structured show. But sometimes it's good, I think, just to have balance.
Yeah, I mean that's what film scores things, isn't it? To do with a symphony orchestra. One thing I've found is that you try and mention the word improvisation to those guys, and they will run for the hills. It's fantastic.
Yeah, but I'm very happy to report Hans just seems to trust me.
Yeah.
I was really quite anxious before I did the first shows with him. I wanted to turn up to rehearsals knowing what I was doing, at least pretend to be professional to some extent. And his team sent me all the scores. It was like, here's 200 pages of The Dark Knight, and I'm looking through it, it's like, there's no guitar part here. Why am I needed? I see an army of cellos, there's no guitar. So I kind of called Hans, like, what do you want me to do? I want to show up being prepared, and this is not helping. And he just said, I trust you.
Okay.
There's one thing I'm good at, it's casting.
Okay. And
I think you can do it. Just do whatever you think is right, and if I disagree, I will tell you. So that's incredibly liberating and also kind of scary at the same time.
So I can imagine it turned into, rather than sitting down and learning all the parts of it, you then put on the album and started sort of, I don't know, trying to work things out over the top of it. From that then.
I mean, some stuff is obvious. If you listen to all the kind of superhero soundtracks and you hear what the cellos are doing, that's how people played heavy metal before electricity.
Oh, definitely.
The fast 16th note ostinato stuff on the cello.
Yeah. You listen to some of those big
related to the whole metal thing. So okay, that's an 8-string guitar moment. I'll dial up all the filth and become one of the cellos. And then there are other things that turned out nothing like what I expected. I had the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack, and we got there and started trying out different things. And in the end, Hans just gives me this banjo. And so, why don't you play some kind of crazy pirate gypsy stuff on this? So I can't play banjo. So, you'll be fine.
Go into the hotel room and learn how to play banjo overnight.
I just assumed I could play banjo.
Okay.
What would I do if I could play banjo? You just couldn't ask.
Yeah, no, you were saying about the cellos and all the previous... I was listening to something, I found a video online I stumbled across from somewhere a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was someone who'd advertising the first ever kind of distortion, kind of overdrive ideas, and they were using it as a way of making a guitar sound like a cello. And it was sort of they were doing all the sort of shit playing like it was almost like those kinds of things, but they were trying for that kind of continuity before guitar players being what guitar players usually are. They went, no, we're doing this with that. We're doing that. We're going to play the chords that we're not meant to be playing using this pedal and play something horrific, which also is amazing.
So that's the whole history of electronic music as well. If you look at something like the Roland 303, so that sounds nothing like a bass guitar.
Yeah.
That's the worst bass guitar emulation ever. But then you give it to the acid people and they start tweaking the knobs, and a whole genre of music is born out of abuse of technology.
Yeah, exactly.
All like the whole 808, 909 drum machines, awful, unconvincing impersonation of a drum kit.
Yeah.
Complete failure in terms of what they were trying to do with the instrument, but
iconic in what they ended up doing.
Comes out. There's a new voice that people never had in music before.
It's things like that that sort of helps keep music moving forward and going on, isn't it?
Yeah, it's important for the mad scientists to keep inventing stuff and for us to keep subverting the results.
That's what musicians have been all along, though, isn't it? Sort of subverting all this technology.
Yeah, it's a cheeky, naughty line of work.
Excellent. So, and finally, so what is it you've been playing on the tour bus? What have been the go-to albums for the...
Well, there's actually a lot of sleeping that goes on in the tour bus.
Okay.
And we have this van this time that the band are riding in, and no one can figure out how the stereo works.
Okay.
It's depressing. Sometimes we'll have a kind of shared headphones experience with one of these little splitter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Have
Really
you heard this?
jacked
Have you heard this? Check this out.
And the last thing we all heard as a band and really liked was a band called Field Music,
Okay.
who I believe are from somewhere up in the north of England. And the elements of Gentle Giant and elements of XTC. It's kind of really clever and really well produced and great pop sensibilities and just a pleasant surprise for all of us.
Yeah.
But the thing that we generally wouldn't do is listen to complicated fusion.
No.
In the sort of band that keep business and pleasure separate.
Yeah.
And then when you get on stage, you actually feel some urge to play crazy music.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
No